Welcome to the Aston Villa summer special, where we're going to go through the squad, decide who we want to get rid of, who we want to sell, who we want to loan, suggest areas of the squad that can be improved, why perhaps we would improve those areas, and then who could come in to improve those areas. I think I think last year we called it the Aston Villa Big Summer Rebuild. I don't know if we're going to change the name. Probably going to perhaps say the same thing, but we don't really need a
All
rebuild
right.
necessarily.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe a bit
yeah,
different because it's not a rebuild. It's just a build, normal build,
bolster.
a bolster.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
So I think let's
yeah,
start off. Let's assess the current squad. Matt, you're going to lead this as you've gone and done more of the research on this side. So
yeah. Well, you're more of an in guy. I think you've got the knowledge on the obscure European youngsters and that. So you're better on the ins, I reckon.
the in and out podcast.
But yeah, current squad. So obviously had a great season. Um,
Really?
so like we just said, it's not really. Yeah, I know. Yeah, surprising. But it's not really a rebuild situation. It's more of just a plug in the gaps a little bit and like improving the squad. But we did suffer towards the end of the season with depth for sure. So I guess start at goalkeeper. Goalkeeper we're kind of fine. Obviously, number one is set, and we're not going to be getting rid of Martinez.
Yeah.
Um, but then there's a little bit of a choice to be made with Olsen, I think. I'd get rid of him because he's not really the type of goalkeeper that suits the system. And we signed Gauchi. But it's hard to assess that really because Gauchi came in but hasn't played a game. He's young. So it's hard to assess whether they signed him as a number two with the idea of getting rid of
Okay.
Olsen.
So I think I'll just pick
Okay.
up on what you said about the goalkeepers. Obviously, Gauch came in January, right? So he's had, well, it'll be by the time next season rolls around, 7, 8 months to really bed in, learn the ways. And I think while Olsen has proved himself useful and he's played a few games, I think ultimately it is a big change when he comes into the next. We do kind of have to change the way we play a little bit.
Yeah.
Players are less confident. So if we can at least build some confidence within Gauchi in the preseason games, because I'm sure Emi Martinez will be. He got permission due to us making Champions League that he can play both the Olympic Games and
Yeah.
Copa America, so he'll need the rest. Gauch
That's
will
true.
need the
Yeah.
confidence. So if he can play in all those preseason matches, I back him to be second pick by the time the season rolls
Yeah.
around.
I want to see that, to be fair. I mean, we obviously signed Gauchi because he's got potential. So I kind of would want to see him come in and be the two and get rid of Olsen. And also, Olsen, like, as far as goalkeepers go, you can probably get a reasonable fee for him. Like, goalkeepers go cheap as anything, really, don't they? Especially second keepers. But he has
Yeah,
had a role this season, and he could definitely still do a job for a Premier League club or like equivalent level. So, yeah, Olsen is probably an out. And then I suppose third choice, like, because teams do tend to have three keepers in the first team squad.
yeah.
But there are quite a few young keepers who,
I mean,
uh,
that's what I was going to say. We've got a whole production line, haven't we? Because we've got Sinisalo's gone and had a great season out on loan. We've
yeah,
also got Zyke. I don't know if he's out on loan or
yeah,
not. He's supposed to be promising. We've got James
he's been on
Ryan.
loan. Yeah, he got in
We've
the
got
Poland squad for
Proctor.
the Euros.
Yeah. We've got
Um, yeah, Proctor.
Lander Emery as well. All those young keepers coming through.
Yeah,
And so Robin Olsen's taking 50K a week off the books just to sit on the bench the majority of the time. And if he does
yeah,
drop to
yeah.
third choice as well, then yeah, I definitely think even if it's a mutual contract end, it does expire this year actually, so I expect that to just expire
Oh
this
right,
year.
okay, that'll be fine.
Um,
Makes it
yeah,
easy.
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so
Any
that's
any
pretty
others?
straightforward. Olsen as an out, and then get one of the youngsters as a third keeper. Defense is kind of probably going to be a fair bit of movement, I reckon. There's the obvious keeps, which are Konza, Torres, um, probably Moreno because we've signed him recently, and then Mings. What do you reckon about Mings? Do you think he's a
Got
definite
to
keep?
keep Mings for a year at least. He deserves
Yeah,
that. He's earned that right to stay. He's earned the right
yeah. I
to
mean, I
stay.
agree. I just don't know whether there might be a bit of them thinking, um, there's just not going to be a space for him in the squad now. But I think Emery's like values loyalty and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
think
Well, the thing is, you look at our squad and where we're weak. We're weak from a defensive perspective at set pieces
in
because we're
physicality,
not great in the air.
yeah,
We don't have much aerial presence, and he fixes that perfectly because he's brilliant in
yeah,
the air. And from a ball playing perspective, he was the guy that was playing out from the back before Emery came in. Um, there was no one else really doing it before. It was just, you know, get the ball up the pitch, or perhaps Mings might do something with it if we've got a bit of space and time. So I really think he deserves that opportunity. Whether he takes to it as he like a duck to water, I don't know if he's going to be suffering. It can
yeah.
really
We don't know
depend
what
on
level he'll
him.
be at, but
Mm,
he at least deserves the opportunity to prove himself that he's still got it, I guess.
yeah.
Um,
What
and
about the
yeah,
other
like
side of defence? What are you thinking there?
yeah, well, so they're probably the obvious definite keeps, and then there's a few definite outs as well, which would be Hawes, Chambers, and probably Longley. Uh,
Well, he's on loan, so he'll be gone anyway.
yeah, but I mean, do you think there's any chance that we sign him permanently?
I think if it comes towards the end of the summer window and we haven't found a good alternative, we might call on him again, and it'll be a very cheap deal because at that point Barcelona will
Yeah,
be desperate. We'll not be desperate, but we'll be willing to, you know, take him on a cheap deal. So if we can sign him at the end of the summer window for less than 5 million, um, and get a drop in his wages as well, I don't see why not. But I just think
yeah,
with that amount of time and the potential sales, I just think there's more opportunity to evolve the squad and bring someone in who's going to offer more, even
yeah.
for a
It's not going to be
youngster.
something we're doing at the start of the window anyway, is it?
Yeah.
So yeah, so then you got few ins, few definite ins or keeps, few definite outs, and then there's been talk that Carlos is we're prepared to sell Carlos.
Well,
Um,
when it comes to Carlos, you're on a fence because you're like the player he is now, as we saw against Arsenal, he can do a job, and so to get a player out of the squad who's in that position and can offer the kind of physicality and experience he has is risky, especially going into a Champions League season. But then you look at it more from a financial perspective. He has spent a year out injured, so his stock has dropped. There is risk in the sense that that could happen all over again. There's the fact that he's 2 years away from the end of his contract, and he is on £100,000 a week. He's not £100,000 a week centre back, in my opinion.
no,
And 2 years until the end of the contract is the perfect time to sell because you retain as much value as you possibly can without running it too close or selling too early. So I think if we can find someone who's willing to pay more than 12 million, something like that, I think, yeah, do it because for that kind of money, you could bring in someone in their early 20s from, Portuguese league, from Eredivisie, from the Belgian league, who could probably do a job and has, maybe a higher ceiling. I'm not saying we're going to be bringing in for that kind of money, a top class talent, but you would just think from a financial perspective and from a squad building perspective, it's probably the right decision, but it really comes down to what kind of offer we'd be able to get.
yeah. Oh, hello. Bye. Oh, bye. um, yeah, yeah. I'm inclined to agree. Really, I think it would just kind of make practical sense, and I think also the dynamic changes when Mings comes back into the team because Carlos has been our only physical centre back really this season because Mings has been out, and you have seen him come in games where we've clearly needed a bit of pace at the back or whatever, whereas Mings can now come in and do that job as well. So Carlos doesn't have as much of an obvious role in the team, and yeah, I think if you can I think you should be able to probably get 10, 15 million for him, to be fair. Because he's still, like, the level he's playing at is still high. It's just the fact that he's, like, quite old, I suppose, and he's on high wages. But
Yeah,
I
I mean
think,
he's only
like,
31, so he's not ancient for a centre back, and as we've seen, he's still got pace. So
yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, in terms of his kind of quality still, he's definitely worth 12 million to someone on a 2 year deal or something. You'd expect that like you could get
I
that
mean,
for him.
I'm really on the fence about that one because if you look, you obviously look at it from a squad building perspective. You say, okay, this guy's 2 years left. Get 12 million for him for a 31-year-old centre back, 100k off the wage bill. That's a lot that we can play with. But then on the other side of it, you look at it and you go, we've got Champions League next year. We want to push again. We want to build the squad depth even more, right? So Mings is coming back. Say the rumours about Hermoso, we'll get onto Ins in a bit, but say the rumours about Hermoso are true when he comes in for free. That's real squad depth at centre back with ball playing ability, with physicality, with pace, with uh, even a little bit of sort of dexterity in the sense that Konza can play right back. I think push Mings could probably get back at left back. Um, Hermoso can play left back.
Yeah,
So
I mean, we
that
started.
brings in some real depth. And sorry, just to finish that point, if you look at is that 10 million that we could get for Diego Carlos worth the 2 years he could probably provide of quality service and depth for the next Champions League or possibly the two Champions League campaigns? I don't know because at the end of that period,
Yeah,
you've got full use out of him, and
yeah.
you have him off the books anyway. It might be worth it.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Like the more I think about it, the more I think maybe he should be a keep. To be honest, just because of the depth thing. I think, while, like you said, if we sold him for 12 mil, 15 mil, um, you could go to Eredivisie and get a young centre back with good potential for similar money, who's just a kind of better value option purely in a financial and long term kind of sense. But at the same time, is that player going to be as reliable as Carlos? Is that player going to take some time to bed in? If we start the season, we've sold Carlos and we've got some younger guy in, if Konza then suddenly gets injured, like, are we comfortable relying on a centre back who's been with the squad for 4 weeks and is like 22 years old? The more I think about it, I'm kind of thinking, if 15 mil is like maybe the maximum you'd expect to get for him, I'm kind of thinking from a depth perspective, keep him. And I also think, depending on what happens with outs elsewhere and what our financial situation is, I think if we wanted depth at centre back, which we probably still do, I think it's not going to massively eat into the finances for us to go and get a 22-year-old young centre back for 15 million. Like, we could probably afford to do that without having to sell Carlos, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So yeah, the more I think about it from a depth perspective, I think I'd probably, on balance, rather keep him. I'm not like, I don't feel super strongly about it either way, because I think, if they choose to sell him, I'm not really against that. If they choose to keep him, that's also, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it either way, really. But I think on balance, I'd probably have him as an in if it was up to me. To be fair,
yeah. Let's go
it's
to
tricky.
fullback then. What are you thinking? What's your
Yeah, I mean, this is tricky as well, because on at left back, Moreno was an Emery signing, so Moreno and Dean, out of them two, Moreno is going to be the definite keep, I would say. At the same time, Moreno's been out most of the season, and Dean has had quite a good season, I think. Um, So part of me kind of just thinks left back we should leave it, because I think them two rotating is fine, even though Dean's wages might be a bit high, and the longer we keep him, the less value he's going to have because he's like sort of on the old side. I actually think, for me, left back I would leave, because I would just leave the resources to more important areas. So personally, I would have Dean as a keep as well as Moreno, and just leave left back as
Mhm.
it is.
See, I'm not on that wavelength at all. I'm like, yes, keep Moreno because ultimately when he's fit and we have the system we want and the players we want, he's going to be a great asset to this side. He offers a lot at his best, like we saw at points this season and mostly last season. And then when you look at the disparity in wages between him and Dean and the kind of similar level they offer, really you have to say Dean just doesn't hold his value at all. Dean is on 120k a week and looks shaky in defence at the best of times. To be honest with you, like yes, he's positionally good, but when we're talking about tackle success rate, I don't think he's particularly high. I don't think he's particularly good in the tackle, and often gets beat because he's not pacey, he's not agile. So from that perspective, 120k a week, and we can still probably recoup 10 million on him, I'd say, and we spent 20 odd. You know, Moreno came in for about that. That's not a huge, that, you know, paying that amount of money is kind of like paying for a 3 year loan. You know, if you had to pay a loan fee of
Yeah,
however much. So I think keep Moreno. I would sell Dean, try and get what we can for him, because just the wages compared to what he offers, the amount that he costs, um, you know, compared to what we said with Carlos, I just don't think he offers enough to this squad to really justify that kind of financial investment in him. So I'm saying get him out, and we've been linked with a few left backs. I think it's definitely a market that's undervalued at the moment, just based on sort of where the top talents are at the moment. There are very little. You know, up at the top end of the scale, you're looking at like a Matson, who's going to go for probably 35 mil if Chelsea decide to sell. At the bottom end of the scale, um, you know, you could pick up a Leaf Davis for probably 7 or 8 mil and still
yeah,
get a tune out of him. So I think there's value to be had in the market. I think Dean doesn't offer it, and I think it's time for some rotation there, because every week when that lineup goes up, that is the point where you're like, with the right wingers in this league, they just don't stand up to it from a defensive perspective, at
yeah. I
least.
mean, that's the thing. Left back has it's been kind of in some ways it's been one of our more settled positions because one of them two has always been available and they're fairly consistent. But at the same time, it is kind of a weak area in games where we've got to defend and when we're in games against like a strong right winger, and like neither of those players are particularly good in that element. So I think maybe, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily absolutely keep it the way it is. I think like your points about the value of Dean are definitely valid, but it wouldn't be a priority change for me. Like say 2 weeks before the end of the window and all our business is done, then I would be like, okay, maybe we should think about left back if there's value out there in the market, whatever. But you do make a good point about the fact that that is quite a weak area defensively for us, and maybe if we were looking to improve the squad at left back, someone who is more defensively solid could be a good option because neither Dean or Moreno inspire confidence defensively, and they both get exposed when we're on the back foot against a good team with a good right winger. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And what do you think about right back? Any any changes, any
yeah.
inklings?
I don't know. Right backs are kind of a weird one as well. A lot of people online are saying that they're quite happy to get rid of Cash. Cash kind of divides opinion a fair bit, I think. Um, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it really. I think partly depends if we sign a centre back because I'm quite happy with Konza at right back. I think he's been quite good at right back, and I think there's potential for him to improve at right back as well. The more he plays the role. So if we sign a centre back, we can move Konza out there and then have Cash as a more attacking option. I'm kind of fine with that. But some people don't like Konza at right back. Some people don't rate Cash at right back, which I think is kind of valid in some ways because he's not a great defender. He's not got a great final ball, but he has got quite a few goals for us this season. But like, I think maybe 2 or 3 of them were deflected, to be fair. But yeah, Cash isn't ideal. I think Cash can be improved upon. It's just whether you get rid of Cash, I suppose. I don't really know how I feel about that. I've not really.
I love Cash. I love Cash. He's one of my
Yeah, I
favourite
knew you were going to
players.
say that.
Anti-hero
Yeah.
hero for me. I wouldn't get rid of him. I mean, let me just quickly, wages wise, he's definitely not up there. So he's 80,000 a week, which is about what you expect for a decent Premier League right back. He's got another 3 years on his contract. So even if we were looking to get value out of him, this year's not the year. I think a year in the Champions League, one, he's earned that in his service to the club. Two, that would improve his value. And I think three, if we can build on the depth we have at centre back and in that hybrid spot that Konza plays, if we can get a backup or alternative like a Denzel Dumfries, whatever, for that position, um, you're then that's when Cash thrives, when he's got the support behind him and he can focus on getting forward
Yeah.
and offering a
Yeah.
threat. We saw it against Lille in those moments. He can step up in the big games as well. So you
Yeah,
know,
he's
I
good in
do
that
think it's
role.
worth getting rid of him.
He's kind of one of them where he's better in a bit part role. He's better coming off the bench and he can just focus on attacking and use his energy, because his best kind of quality really is his energy and his running, and he's not afraid to pick up the ball and be direct. And he does offer kind of definitely offers something to the squad there. Like, he's come on in games, and like you say, he's changed games in that position before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if I had to make a choice, I would keep Cash, but I would get an upgrade as well. I'd get an upgrade for the first team and have Cash as more of a rotation option. That also means that Konza can then purely focus on centre back, and that means that we don't have to worry about depth in that position quite as much. So that's probably it. If I had to make a decision, I'd keep Cash, but also sign another right back.
Yeah, so I hold a different opinion again here. I think keep Cash, keep Konza. I think if we're going to sign anyone in that area, you sign the hybrid player. You don't go for an out-and-out right back, because I think Nedeljkovic coming in, I don't think that's just a future signing. I think that's they see something in him, may not to take over from Cash, but at least he can. I think they think he can contribute from the early stages. Just how quickly he gets back from his injury. It's just what we do with Kessler Hayden. Do we keep him for more depth? Well, we did that, and he didn't get any minutes. Perhaps more on the line, but I think if we can get a loan for him in the lower Premier League levels, I could see him doing well at Ipswich potentially, or if we can get him in the upper Championship areas, I think that's going to be good value for us. Otherwise, that's a sell.
I imagine we'll do a similar thing with him that we did with Aaron Ramsey and Archer. Like, it might be another like a loan with a sale with an obligation or whatever.
Yeah.
Situation.
To be honest, in terms of signings, where we want to improve the squad, I know right back depth wise is, perhaps a talking point depending on how you view it. But I think it's the last place really we need to be making a big signing. I'd focus on other areas first, because I just don't think Cash needs to play an out-and-out right back role. When he does, he is quite solid defensively. At least on the eye test, his defensive numbers are kind of above average, but not amazing. So
I don't know about defensively, to be honest.
Static in that area.
Yeah, I don't have the same confidence in him defensively that you do. I don't think.
He does make mistakes. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's kind of a confidence player in that respect. I think he makes those mistakes when he feels like we're under pressure, when we're on the back foot, because that's when he's the one who's ruining the offside trap and getting sort of out of the line often. But when he's not playing out and out right back, when we have that cover behind him, as I say, when he's that wing back type player, he just thrives. So I can't see us getting rid of him just for the.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, he does that one role well. He just doesn't do the defensive aspect so well. But then we've been playing Konsa at right back in that situation anyway. So I think probably on balance, keep Cash. Kessler Hayden, I imagine, will be a loan or even a sell. And then, Nedeljkovic is a little bit of an unknown, but I kind of agree with you. I think he's not a sort of super long-term prospect. Like, I think he will probably come in and be on the bench, getting the occasional minutes and stuff.
I mean, if you just look at it financially, we signed two fullbacks in January, right? We signed Sousa, or Sousa, whatever you want to say, and Nedeljkovic. One of them cost probably 300,000-400,000 out of an academy. One of them cost like 7-8 million out of a European Champions League playing first team because of his performances over the season. So clearly they don't see those two in the same light, and I think Nedeljkovic may well stay in the squad and contribute from
kind of agree with that. So midfield. So I've split it kind of into like proper midfielders and then forwards. So I've got Ramsey, Rogers, Buendia in forwards, just because they'll probably be playing more attacking roles. But in terms of the sort of proper midfielders, Luiz is obviously a keep. Agree?
I'll hold my thoughts.
Interesting. Is it going to be a value thing again? Because I think there is an argument that he's maybe our most valuable player now, and if you wanted to cash in, this would be the time.
Yeah, I think let's determine the fate of the rest of the midfield, and then I think that helps us make the decision on him.
Okay, so Luiz, well, we'll leave that. McGinn is a keep for me,
Obviously,
no doubt. Kamara,
Stanley
same.
retiring at the club.
I hope so, man. He's going to be Emery's assistant one day.
Mm.
Yeah, Kamara's a keep. Tielemans is a keep. Um, and then that's kind of it in terms of like who we've been playing first team midfielders. Then you've got Tim Arobenham, who is probably a decision to be made there.
I think anyone who knows about football, watches Villa, and has seen him play has probably the same opinion. His ceiling is sky high. By the eye test, he looks brilliant. It's just he has those moments of inconsistency of an immaturity where he will just make the wrong pass or not be in the right place. I think given game time, he could. The sky's the limit for him. I think Emery just doesn't quite trust him yet at that top level. But for depth, for for the talent he has, like if I'm playing Football Manager or anything like that, I'm keeping him. But it doesn't always work like that. So we'll just have to see. That's going to come down to a trust thing with Emery. I think he's definitely got
Yeah,
the ability to
it's
stay
a
and
hard one.
stay.
Again, that's probably another one where it depends what we do. If we sign a centre mid or two, I don't see him Irobenham sticking around because he's barely got an opportunity this year when we've sometimes been quite thin in that area. So like you say, if we sign a centre mid or two, I don't think he gets a look in. But if this summer he performs in pre-season and Emery learns to trust him a little bit more, he could have a fairly significant role in a season where we've got a load of games again. So yeah, that one's kind of just impossible to call really. And that's kind of it in terms of our current
Well, there's
midfielders.
Dendoncker.
Oh yeah,
That's an
Dendoncker. I
obvious
mean,
out for me. He's kind of severed his ties already
yeah,
with some of his
Dendonker's just
comments and
an
what
obvious
he's
out.
been
And
doing.
then
Yeah.
yeah, Chambers we covered in defenders as well. But you could have him in the midfielder. We've got Kellyman as well. I don't know where you put Kellyman. He's probably more of a forward player. He's like an attacking midfielder, I
Yeah.
think.
I think he gets
Um,
a loan, probably, to be honest. I would
yeah,
expect so.
yeah. Of the academy products, apart from Irobenham, he probably had the most action. Like he played in the early rounds of the Conference League and stuff.
Mm.
Um, I think he had an appearance or two at the end of the season, maybe last game of the season.
Yeah, yeah. I think,
Um,
but that did partly come down to the absence of players like Wendir and Ramsey. I think when we've got a full
yeah,
squad, especially if we're going to make another signing in those kind of areas, he does need a loan. And I'd expect, while he's not set the world alight and he's not been starting games and necessarily scoring goals and things like that, with the way he performs in the youth levels, the kind of reputation he has within the club, the respect and expectation Emery has on of him as well. I think upper championship loan move is not out of the question. I think
no, I agree, man. I mean,
be a
yeah, I
really,
think
really good loan move.
Emery, like with the Robenham, Emery does like will only play a young player if he trusts him, and he's not afraid of playing young players, but he's got to have a real faith in them. And Kellyman's what? Is he 17 or did he turn 18 this year?
I think
Um,
he's about to turn 18 or just turned 18.
yeah,
So
so
he's got
he's very
his full
young.
career ahead of him.
The amount of time that he's had this season, considering Emery needs to trust a young player, has been quite impressive. So I think definitely we'll be looking to get him in the upper championship for a loan because there's an argument that he's probably our biggest prospect at this point from in that kind of age bracket.
Yeah,
But
potentially. I
anyway,
mean, he's played 50 minutes total this season, so he's not been huge numbers. But I mean, even 0.1 xG for 50 minutes is not bad.
yeah, I mean he played well in the I think it was against Hibs
Yeah,
in the Conference League, and like I remember him playing well. So
and it's
um,
really built on his game. Every time he drops down to the under 21s now and the under 18s, he's scoring pretty much every game.
yeah,
Like he really is a standout player now.
yeah. So hopefully a good loan for him. And then we got forwards. So um, the definite
Well, the
keeps.
midfield forwards,
Yeah,
like
okay. We'll do the midfield forwards. So we've got Rogers, Ramsey, Buendia, and would you put Bailey in the same bracket, or are you calling him a forward forward?
but we'll keep him as a forward forward. Obviously, Coutinho technically falls into this category, but I think there's a whole little double deal going on where we're potentially investing in Vasco da
Yeah, I've seen
Gama
this.
and Coutinho might be heading there on a sort of mutual agreement to break his contract as well. Um, so I think that's a good deal for all involved. I mean, Coutinho's wages, if I'm correct, are mid hundreds.
Oh yeah, he's one of them absolutely ridiculous signings.
I mean, it's still got him down as Alderhale with no wages on there, but I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a good at least 140k a week.
Yeah,
He's just at his age now, his physical profile, he's literally about to turn 32, just not worth keeping at all. He's one of those that you do what you can to get him out of the
I
squad.
mean he's going to Vasco da Gama, who are a team who have been like bottom half of the Brazilian first league this year. So that's essentially the level
Does
that
yeah,
he's at now. So
yeah.
yeah, Coutinho's a definite out, and then you've got Buendia. Buendia's could be a tricky one. I would like to keep him personally.
Yeah, I think unlike with your Cashes and your Mings, I don't think he's necessarily done as much to deserve the right to come back into this squad and compete. But I think based on what we saw of him in early pre-season and towards the end of that first Emery season, I think it's worth gambling on it because if he comes back anywhere near that level, not only does that give us more options and kind of uh, almost seem like a new signing, he's not going to have much value at this current point in time, even if we did wanted to sell him. And he's also going to suit when we're in those kind of games which we're trying to break down a low block. He loves that kind of situation. That's similar to Tielemans, like his sort of bread and butter. Getting those sharp, short little sort of turns and fast little passes through the legs and through little gaps. That's what he's there for. So if he can come back and offer that, I think
Yeah,
that's great value for us because this squad, while it needs depth for sure, needs signings. If it were to stay the exact same and we were to finish fifth or sixth, for example, that wouldn't be the end of the world. That would still represent
that'd
not
still be a good
progression, but
season,
it
I
would
think.
it would at least give us stability in the sense that we're still competing at a high level in the Premier League. We're getting European competition. So at worst come to worst, if we didn't sign too many players, having uh, like something in Buendia back does still strengthen the squad and give us the opportunity to still stay high up in the Premier League and have enough depth.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's a yeah. I think he'd be a keep for me, just because, like you say, he's kind of he can always come in like a new signing, and if he comes back at a similar level to what he was showing at the end of Emery's first season, you're getting like a 35, 40 million player, um, which we haven't potentially seen the best of yet. And we did spend like 35 mil on him, and we wouldn't probably get that for him now because of his injury situation. So yeah, I want to see him succeed. Like I like him as a player. He's quite a unique player. He's always been a fun one to watch, even if he has been frustrating at times. But yeah, I want to. I think he should be given a chance for sure because there's potential that he comes back and he's a proper quality player for us.
Yeah.
Um,
The
Rogers
only
is
thing I would
obviously
say
go on.
to possibly throw that into doubt is so the alternative scenario because you've got to weigh this up in a risk management perspective, right? It's not just how do we feel about the player, could he be good, right? It's what do we risk if he's not, and what do we gain if he is, and what we risk if he comes back and he's not good is we probably got a player that we're going to struggle to get much more than 10, 15 million for if he's lost all that ability. He's 2 years left on his contract. So if we give him that year and we get nothing out of it, he's suddenly then left with not much value left in the market for a player like that who's spent 2 years essentially contributing nothing with a year left on his deal, and all of a sudden we're looking at losing a good 66% or more of what we paid for him. So you could view it as do we sell now while there's still a question there of whether he could be good? But I think it's a hard decision to make. Um, just based off how he did play right before he was injured.
Yeah, I think that there's no reason to think that he will suddenly be shit just because of the injury. Sometimes that does happen with players, but often it's with older players. He's still like 27, is he? 26?
How old is he? 1997. So that's
Well, he was born on Christmas
27.
Day.
27 moving 28.
Right. So he's 28. So there's no reason to think that just because he's had a bad injury, he's just suddenly going to never see the level he was at ever again. He did look really good towards the end of, basically just before he got injured. Um, so obviously it is a bit risky because we paid a lot of money for him, and he's on a fairly significant wage. But yeah, I think that there's no reason to suggest that he won't come back and
Yeah,
find the same
it's a
level.
complete
Really,
gamble, is essentially what we're saying. You know, you
very
you
much.
you, you throw in bloody knives into a dark room, if you know what I mean. You don't know what's in there. You don't know where they're going to land. It could go one
Pretty
way or
much.
the other. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's a complete gamble. Let's just say keep him because we are Villa fans. We've got to have faith.
Keep the faith.
Keep the faith.
Yeah. So Rogers obviously
Yeah, don't even need to.
don't need
He's
to go
key.
there. Ramsey is another one where there's been a bit of talk because just from a value perspective, he we'd get a lot of money for him, and he'd be like pure profit in the
For me, this is
financial
where
sense.
the Louise conversation becomes so much more significant because if we've got to pick between selling Ramsey for, I mean, because of the injury, you probably can't even get 50 million for him.
Yeah,
We
well,
can choose
that's
between,
part of it.
yeah, selling Ramsey under market value
Yeah,
or selling Louise what I think is probably over market value for what he offers total. You know,
yeah,
I think you go Louise because if you can squeeze out 80 million for Louise, a player that, if we're honest with ourselves, while he offers a lot going forward, without Kamara there, he can look a little bit suspect at times. There were multiple times where he just was kind of very nonchalant, not doing some of the basic things that you need to do in build up play,
yeah. He
waiting
does
out.
rely on the right player next to him,
Yeah.
which
And
is not a great quality to have.
yeah, one of the things I have put for how we can improve is adding more structure and athleticism to the midfield because Louise gets by on his technical abilities. In terms of his positioning defensively, it doesn't stand out. In terms of his athleticism, he often is walking around the pitch and jogging around the pitch. He has that kind of air about him of someone like a Coutinho or a Ronaldinho or something like that, where he just kind of thinks, I'm the best technically on the pitch. I don't need to try and
Yeah, I
prove
don't
that I'm
think
the
it's that
best.
bad.
It's
I
not
think
that
that's a
bad,
bit
but
harsh.
it's it comes through in his demeanor, if you know what I mean.
There is a bit
So
of that. I think with
so
him, it's not so much like cockiness
yeah,
or overconfidence. I think it's just lack of concentration with him. He's just a bit of a airy kind of floaty kind of player, kind
mm,
of person. It's not like super kind of focused all the time, basically. But yeah, for a centre mid, it's not a great quality to have. He does have his limitations especially when he's not got like a, good defensive player next to him. So yeah, I don't know. I agree. If it had to be between Ramsey or Louise, I would go with Louise because we could get more money for him. Ramsey's a homegrown, one of our own. Um,
and if you look
I
across
think like
the amount of players that we could get that can do what not Ramsey, can do what Louise can do, maybe not to the exact same level, but to a level that is replaceable in the squad for good value. 80 million could get you almost any level that you need in this current
yeah,
market in midfield. Whereas you look at a left attacking midfield, I don't know if that value's the same. I think a lot of young attacking talents and creative talents are earmarked well before they actually end up leaving these days, and they tend to go for big fees because they're the sexy players, they're the marketable players. They offer more
yeah,
from a sort of commercial perspective, and they're more exciting, so they tend to go for higher fees, bigger money. And Ramsey, should he continue on the progression that we were seeing with him before he got injured, he could hold a bigger status than McGinn might in 5 years' time if he stays at the club.
I mean, there was a period of time when it was like there was talk of him in the England squad, and it kind of looked like the sky was the limit with him, really. So it would be devastating if we saw him go to fucking Newcastle and in 3 years' time he's in the England squad playing for Newcastle. Like, can't happen. Just can't
I
happen.
mean, I don't think Newcastle would be the risk. I think you're looking at more like an idiot team like Chelsea, or maybe London make a move for him. I mean, I wouldn't even put out the question that he'd go to a Liverpool or a City. I don't think
Liverpool,
he's.
I could see like Borussia Dortmund or something like that.
Yeah, but yeah, just not. It's not worth it for the fans. It's not worth it for the club.
No.
I don't think it's worth it for the player.
I'd say though, I think
Yeah,
Louise, I don't want to see leave either. I think ideally, I would rather us make all the signings we need without having to rely on selling either Louise or Ramsey. Like, I think we've got a fair few players that are on the fringe of the squad that we're very happy to get rid of, and I think focus on getting rid of them. Maybe a few academy products that we can sell or do sort of similar deals that we did with Archer, etc. Like, because Louise has been here since the first season we came up in the Premier League. He was a massive part of us staying up in the league. He's been part of our progression. Like, there's a lot of emotional attachment with Louise as a player as well. So I don't want to see either of them leave. Obviously, like Louise is also a fan favourite player. So ideally, we wouldn't have to get rid of either. But if it came down to it, I would probably go Louise as well. But I'm going to have them. Like, if it was up to me, I'd keep them both, 100%.
yeah. I think. I mean, you just. I don't know how to articulate my point, so I'm just going to waste too much time. Let's move on.
You can revisit it. You can do like a separate mini episode just on that one thought.
Yeah, I'll do a little short, and you can upload it.
I won't talk about that. Okay, so then we've got like forwards. We've got obviously Watkins is a keep.
Yep, Diaby keep. Leon Bailey.
Diaby, yeah, obviously a keep. What did you say, Duran?
And do we have an obligation to bring Archer back? There's been mixed reports on this. I don't know if it's an obligation.
Yeah, I don't think anyone knows.
Just different value that we get for bringing him.
I think, well, the thing that I've read the most is that we're obliged to buy him back because they got relegated. But I've read different stuff as well. That seems to be like the most solid thing that I've read, but it could be wrong.
Let's operate off the assumption that happens then, and we've got Duran and Archer. How do we move forward there? Because
I don't know, man.
An Archer looks like we've spoken about this. You know, for a guy that's as small as he is, and for a guy that's sort of had as much time in the lower leagues, and you know, he's now got to this age where he's finally getting opportunities in the last couple of years. He does have a few kind of traits that you really look at and you're like, that's quite rare. You know, in the box, his touch and his kind of instinct to get a shot off and to get through the gaps and find the right positions really does scream of someone who could perform at the highest level. And if you create big chances for him, he will finish them. Of course, he was massively starved of that at Sheffield United. And so part of me thinks, you know, if you're going to have someone to partner Ollie Watkins up there, like we said, he could be a perfect player to do that because he is reasonably creative as well and good with the ball at his feet. So he could be a great partner. On the other hand, you've got John Duran, who, while he's a bit of a wild character and he's not a very good facilitator, if you want a number 9 to just tear up a game with pace and power and finishing ability, he has it in abundance. And if we harness his abilities, we could have a Colombian Haaland on our hands, you know. So it's one of those. You're picking between an apple.
It's hard. I don't know. I think Duran just fills me with so much joy when he comes on because he is completely mad. It's like he's never played football before sometimes when he comes on. It's like his brain is like, where the hell am I? I don't know what I'm doing. But his legs, like his left foot, just does it. every time. And like he is kind of just exciting and fun to watch because, like you say, if he can be molded right and given enough opportunity and given the right guidance, he's got the kind of physicality and the technical ability to be really, really good, like mega good. And also because he's quite young and because he's shown flashes of brilliance this season, as a sale, we could probably get a fair bit of money for him. Seems like Chelsea are potentially interested. They pay stupid money for people. From what he's shown in his age, we could probably sell him for good money. But I just don't want to do it because he's just so exciting to watch.
Yeah,
It's
like if you sold him to AC Milan for 30 million, you go, okay, great, we've got like 12 million profit there, right? But then he goes to AC Milan, they let him sort of flourish into this kind of maverick solo character that he wants to be. It go one or two ways. He could just kind of fall flat on his face and, you know, look a bit of an idiot, or he could be a superstar and we'll just feel
yeah,
stupid that we didn't take advantage of that. So I
yeah,
think on that basis and the fact that he's only been here, is it a year and a few
yeah. We
months?
signed him last January,
Yeah,
so
so he's
it's been a year and a couple months basically.
yeah. So I mean, I'm open to a loan. If we can get him, you could definitely loan him within the league. You know, you could definitely one of the promoted sides. I mean, Leicester, Vardy's. I don't know if he's retiring or if he's getting close. Other than that, they've got Iheanacho. I don't know if they've still got what was that guy's name, Daka. He could do a
Yeah, I don't
job
know.
there if you ask me. I don't know if he's going to be a Maresca style signing, but oh wait, no, Maresca's left. I don't know
Oh,
who's coming in.
Maresca's gone. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I don't know who's coming in there, but he could do a job, I suspect.
Yeah, at that level for sure. The only thing with him is that, like, at a relegation squad, do you want a player who's a bit more responsible? Because that would be a risk for a relegation team, but it could also be like massively beneficial for a relegation team if he comes into his own and gets like 10 goals, whatever. Um, yeah, I don't know what to do with him because like it's kind of a difficult. I think this season he's been our backup striker, and he's not always been totally reliable in that situation. When we're in the Champions League, is he that actually that practically useful as a backup striker? I don't know. So maybe we need someone in that area anyway. But then if we get someone in that area, Duran's getting even less opportunity for game time. So then maybe a loan could happen. So yeah, maybe the sensible thing would be get in a backup striker who's a bit more reliable, maybe like cheap, 30 years old, 2 year contract, whatever, and then let Duran go out on loan for a couple of years at a Premier League club or like a Serie A or whatever, but at a good level. Maybe that would be the sensible thing to do with Duran.
Yeah, possibly. I think you're looking at two eventualities, right, for this summer with our strikers is one, Archer is sold and we recoup more, even more profit on him because what we've done is quite smart. We knew Sheffield United were likely to get relegated, right? So we got £20 million profit on him, selling him. We buy him back for 10. Oh no, right? But then we sell him again for 15, right? Then actually our total profit ends up coming to 25
Yeah,
made on him, you know, at
yeah,
the time. So
yeah. Archer for me would be a sale, even though I want to see him succeed at Villa. I think Uh, I think in that area, this is a Champions League season. We need someone reliable. So I think we're going to sign someone. I don't think Duran is that reliable. I think Archer is also not
yeah,
going to be relied upon.
well,
So
the other alternative that I didn't mention there because I sort of said there'll be two and then only talked about one. The other alternative is that we don't make any moves at striker and we just say Duran after another year will become probably a bit more level-headed, might be able to help even more in and around the squad. We might find a better role for him. Um, and then bringing in Archer gives you even more depth, means you're not stuck if someone gets injured. It gives you that alternative style, that alternative that can actually probably play up front in the two. Um,
mm,
and we can focus on other areas of the squad because ultimately Ollie Watkins doesn't miss games and doesn't
yeah, well
make
that's
many
the thing.
chances
Yeah,
either. So yeah, if you've got him up front every game, do you
yeah.
really need to be too concerned with how many strikers you've got and how good they are?
I prefer that option to be fair because I think yeah my general approach with the squad this year is we've had a really good year. We've got into fourth even with some gaps, and so I don't want to see us change anything massively. sometimes Duran Watkins thing up front has been a little bit of an issue because you're thinking if Watkins gets injured here, are we a bit stuffed? But then sometimes Duran's come on and he's been brilliant as well.
Yeah, big
And also,
consistency as well.
yeah. And the thing with yeah, I mean that's the thing. He has had a few starts. He started with Watkins a couple of times, and we play with Watkins up front, but then we've got Bailey and Diaby who can play basically up front alongside him in a kind of shadow striker role. I reckon Rogers and Ramsey and Buendia can all also play there. And so while we've only got Watkins and Duran as kind of out and out centre forwards, um, I could see a situation where if Watkins did get injured, we'd have enough there in terms of players that can play a kind of false nine forward situation. Because Rogers has played at a youth level and played up front, and he's got the
Yeah,
physicality for it. He's obviously, you don't want to rely on him for that
got
position,
the
but he
finishing
could do
for
it
it.
there. Like I think we've probably got enough if we want to go that route.
But it does mean keeping Archer is the main thing that we have to consider.
Yeah, and then
But
that's
it would still be £10 profit, £10, £10 million profit recorded on the books. Even if we bought him back for 10 million, which I think is probably around the fee that
yeah.
the buyback
I mean,
price pays.
I like the idea of keeping Archer. It's just the only problem with it is that it's a missed opportunity for pure profit.
Mm,
But as a fan, you don't want that to be a primary motivation, do you?
no, no, you're right. So let's call it there on the outs. I think it's time to discuss the ins. So
Yeah, we got 20 minutes to go.
yeah,
In. Tell me what's
so
that.
my three big sort of points where we want to improve in this squad is I want more size across the squad.
Yeah.
More so, I'd say biggest priority to get more size is the defence. After that, you look at it for midfield, and after that, you look at it for forwards. And I think it's something that comes perhaps in, it's fluid. We're not saying every player that has to come in has to be huge, but if we sign someone who's 5'7" in the midfield, then we want to sign someone who's maybe 6'3" in defence, right? If we sign someone who's 6'2" in defence, then perhaps we go with someone who's 5'11" plus in midfield. If we sign someone who's 6'4" up front, then maybe we can be a bit more lax on everything else. So that was one aspect that I wanted to bring in. Second aspect was more structure because Tielemans, he is great positionally. He's great at progressing the ball, great on the ball, but he's not defensively offering a huge amount in terms of providing that structure and getting back in position. McGinn, we all know how good he is and how hard he works, but ultimately we want him further up the pitch. And Louise, as we've touched on, can be a liability defensively depending on who he's next to, depending on his kind of mood on a given day. So to bring in someone who's going to be able to offer all the sort of safety and reliability of Tielemans and of a Louise, but then also be defensively solid for those games where we need to have a little bit more structure against perhaps teams that like to break and things like that. That's going to be really useful. I mean, I'll touch on it now. Obviously, Ross Barkley's been rumoured as a player that's coming in.
Yeah, that's one of the stronger
He,
rumours.
yeah, he would be a fantastic. I mean, he's basically exactly what Louise is, but slightly different. I think he's got more power. He's got more pace. He's certainly a bigger man. I mean, he's 6'1", 6'2", is he?
Yeah, he's not a player who sort of you
Chunky
think of
guy.
as being physically imposing, like,
If you
but
watch
at the
his,
same
I
time,
watched his highlights from the season. He is a big guy. Like
yeah, he's
he's
tall,
got
he's
real
strong.
talent for sort of breaking through, sort of certainly offensive duels as well. Really, really press resistant. So if he comes in as expected, even though he's 30, it's a 2-year contract. He's not going to be on huge wages. He's probably going to be not much more than sort of 50, 60K. He's going to be perfect rotation or even potential starter by a few months into the season, depending on what kind of movements we see. So yeah, that's good cover. And so the last thing I was looking at really was more athleticism, specifically, as I say, in the box to box area, which Ross Buckley covers, and also on that left side of defence because Pau Torres doesn't have it. Moreno, while he's probably quite fit and pacey, he's not very strong. He's not very physically imposing, and Dean doesn't have I don't think Dean's ever even heard of the word athleticism. So
He's
we'll
quite good in
leave
the
that
air.
there. Yeah, he can jump a little bit, but
Good in the air. He's quite tall, but he's not quick.
yeah,
He's not
and he's
really
not
strong.
strong, and he's not
Yeah.
doesn't seem particularly fit. I mean, yeah, obviously he's fit. He's a professional footballer, but he's not. He doesn't. He's not a standout. Um, so that those were my sort of traits and aspects of the team where I wanted improvement because yeah, we struggled defensively at set pieces. We struggled sometimes when the game gets away from us and it gets a bit end to end. We didn't necessarily have the pace and athleticism to keep up with the game. So it all makes sense for me looking at how our season progressed and how it ended, becoming stronger in those areas. In terms of positions, I was thinking, right, we'll back up to Konza slash Cash in that hybrid right back role. I think is an important place, but I think priority should be the midfield and centre back. So that centre back position, if we go for someone big, does help then make that Carlos decision. It then helps us make that decision of not potentially bringing in a right back if we bring in a right-sided centre back. If
Mm.
Mario Hermoso comes in, as we've sort of discussed, he's brilliant on the ball. He's been at the highest level playing for a defensively fantastic team for a long time. And so, I mean, if you make that signing, you pretty much solve the left hand side of defence um, for a good few years. Whether that's a Pau Torres Hermoso combination, whether it's got Mings involved, I think it gives us the scope to then release a left back and use those funds to reinvest in centre back for a fee. Which, if I'm going to touch on that, someone who could play centre back, right back, we've obviously we've been linked to Araujo. I think that's a bit far fetched. Love to see
Yeah,
it
that would be
happen,
nice,
obviously,
but
but
a bit
yeah.
unrealistic.
Um, so if we couldn't get Hermoso, you could obviously go in Hincape. I know obviously Alonso said he's keeping that squad together, but I doubt they're going to not sell anyone, and Hincape is going to be he's one of the least used in that squad.
Mm.
Now
Yeah, that's good.
he's 22, 23 now, I think perhaps, and could do with a first team starting spot. He's someone that again can play centre back and left back. Doesn't necessarily offer that physicality and height. Well, maybe, perhaps not physicality, but he doesn't offer necessarily the aerial presence that you might want. So that's an interesting one, but I think that's low priority. I'd prefer to get someone on that right hand side, and I've mentioned Denzel Dumfries, but he is more of that sort of wing back who can be defensively solid. I'd
Yeah, he's
prefer
a
to
proper right
see
back, really, isn't he?
why I bring up Araujo is because yes, Barcelona need to sell, right? And Araujo is a great sellable asset, but someone they've got right next to him who I think could be fantastic for us is Jules Koundé, right? He's not as good. He's probably on less money. He's probably got a lower market value. He's far more adept in terms of playing that hybrid role. He's great on the ball. I think if we could pluck him out of Barcelona, we really, really, really make a good case for keeping Konza in a centre back role, having backup slash a starter over Cash. I think he'd offer us so much. If you're looking for a bit more height, someone who can play centre back and push Konza out, I think Mohamed Samakan from RB Leipzig is a brilliant option. He can do something similar but would be probably preferential at centre back. Wilfred Singo out of AS Monaco, similar story right there. He's a big, quick, physical right wing back who's been transitioned into centre back, would offer that same kind of cover. So those three are real targets for me in terms of, especially if you want to add some height. If you wanted to go for an out and out centre back, I think we could easily challenge for the signature of someone like Jean-Claire Todibo this summer, who's going to be a big target for a lot of clubs. And I think towards the end of the year, the fact that Lenny Yoro got so much sort of highlight on him, I think that perhaps took a bit of the stardom and the limelight away from Jean-Claire Todibo. United have been linked to him for a while. I think Arsenal may even be linked to him. But with Champions League football and the kind of wages he's on, we could certainly be an attractive prospect for him. And he offers everything we would be looking for. He would offer more on the ball ability than Konza. He's 6'3". He'd be fantastic in defence. and he's had a great defence this year, and he was a huge part of that. So if we could bring him in, I think we possibly even negate the need to bring in a hybrid right back or even an out and out right back, and we also offer so much balance then to that defence where you've got not just the height and physicality, but you've also got out balls on both sides, and players who can progress the ball on both sides. So you're not relying on a Pau Torres to do it every single time.
Yeah, yeah. I think the centre back is definitely the more convincing of the. Whether you go for a hybrid or a right back or a centre back. I think if you go for a right-sided centre back, it kind of negates the need for a right back because then you've got Cash and Konza who can cover that, and then also Kostas Nedeljkovic as well. And it's easier to find a more physical player who's an out-and-out centre back, and it'll be a more physical player is more useful in that position rather than being out on the right-hand side as well. So, yeah, I think good shouts. I think I was looking at Wilfried Singo yesterday. He looks so good.
Yeah, it wouldn't be too expensive.
Yeah, good age, but good numbers. Like when you see him play, he passes the eye test in terms of like his power and his pace.
Yeah, I think the ideal scenario there from a financial perspective will probably be get Hermoso in on a free, sell Dean, getting a young left back. Then that gives us the scope to also buy a centre back as well, who would be on the cheaper end, like Wilfried Singo. The alternative is you just sign Jean-Claire Todibo, and in that case, you probably sell Carlos and you maybe keep a Chambers or something for backup. Um, and you kind of you have to jiggle things around a bit, but the point is you get the top man, the top choice who could become a superstar and really elevate the level of the squad and have a big impact. Whereas the alternative is we get two very, very good players and we hold a bit more depth, but then we also kind of run the risk of not really improving so much and just becoming more stable, which they both have their benefits and they're both ways we could definitely go and we could see the team progress under. But sometimes you look at other teams and you look at the way Arsenal signed Rice this year and he played every single game. You don't always need to focus on depth because if you bring that superstar in, you can elevate the level of the squad and the impact it can have on the team can negate the need for so much depth because you just become so much better every game.
Yeah, and like when I'm thinking about the season, defense in terms of depth wasn't actually a massive problem for us because we had Longley as a backup signing. We've now got Mings to cover that. Carlos and Konza, they were both injured at different points briefly, but one or the other could come in. Cash had some injury problems, but he had Konza covering him. Like compared to our situation in midfield, defensively, we were never super strapped by a sort of lack of players or a lack of quality.
Yeah.
So I think maybe one signing who is a player who is excellent and who improves the level could be enough. I don't think depth is as much of a worry as midfield. And then especially if you're getting, say, Barkley on a free in midfield, you're not spending necessarily lots of money there and you're getting a good cheap signing. Hermoso as well on a free, who is depth at centre back in defence. Like I'd be inclined to go with a very good one very good, maybe slightly more expensive right-sided centre-back signing, Hermoso on a free, and I think we'd be fine defensively in terms of depth then.
Yeah, I mean, we see the likes of Arsenal and City playing with this system where centre-backs are put into those full-back positions and they do come out and they do a good job. So if you bring in Hermoso, you can sell Dean and not have to bring in a left-back, and that opens up.
Yeah, I mean, Hermoso's played there a fair bit.
He's got 35 million value on transfer.
Yeah. And before Mings got injured in pre-season, we were experimenting with Torres at left back as well, and doing the kind of three centre backs thing, but on the other side. So yeah, Hermoso on a free kind of makes that a possibility, and then you need less options on the right hand side because you've got some on the left. And yeah, I think Hermoso on a free gives us enough depth, and then one quality signing would be ideal.
Yeah. So I mean, let's finish up because I know you've got to go soon. So we'll just touch on the rest of the squad. So if we make those two signings, we cover the depth for defence, we cover the sort of dexterity of the defence and having players that can cover different positions, and we ultimately improve the level of the defence. Looking at midfield, if you want to add more structure, add more kind of organisation in there, we're looking at Ross Barkley coming in solves a lot of that. If he does end up replacing Louise, if we sell Louise, then I think you're looking at a sort of Conor Gallagher perhaps that can come in. We've been
Yeah,
linked to him. Chelsea want to sell. I think he'd definitely come here. Another player I want to put back into the ring, Maxence Kakare. I did this last summer. Still think it's just as viable a signing in an opinion. He could come in and offer a lot to this side without having to be the biggest and most physical player ever. Yusuf Fafana again, still hanging about at Monaco. While he's not
yeah.
a
I've
superstar,
seen today that he is preparing to leave.
yeah, he does offer that depth. So again, why not?
Linked to
Don't
Onana at Everton as well.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't see that happening just because of the price that would probably come to.
yeah, I thought
Um,
about that, but I think like he's not. It was a couple of years ago when it was like he looked really promising and he's worth loads of money. Since then, he's not really kicked on, and Everton's financial situation has become a lot worse. I think depending on how bad their financial situation is, that could be a very good value signing. Actually, I don't really feel like that depends on context. To be honest,
yeah, and then I mean, just to finish off, finally, our probably lowest priority position is up front in terms of what we've spoken about. Um, then what are you looking at? You look at perhaps a Joshua Zirkzee who would come in and replace John Duran if he moved out. I don't think you'd have two of them in the same squad. They offer too much similarity.
yeah,
While
yeah,
Zirkzee does definitely have better hold up play and better on the ball. Um, you know, just having those two guys in the squad doesn't feel like it offers much space for rotation amongst the two of them.
no,
You've got to pick one or the other. Jonathan David, I think, does offer you a little bit more flexibility there. That is someone who comes in and improves the top line level of the squad and makes an impact. But again, you've got to prioritise that. And I just don't think we
yeah.
do need to
I
do that.
mean, that's an interesting one because if suddenly we're being linked strongly with David, like my opinion on Duran might change because David is such a quality player, he's proven at a high level, and considering the kind of numbers that have been bandied about for that Chelsea are interested in Duran for, you can probably sell Duran, get David in, and basically break even, and not actually have to spend any money on David. And because he's such a quality player, you're thinking maybe selling Duran, if that is the case, looks like a possibility or more of
Yeah,
a
yeah. But again,
good option.
that's an opportunity thing. That's does the
Yeah, it
market allow
depends on
for it?
what's available. Yeah.
And what do we achieve in other areas of the squad? Um, One alternative I did consider is what if we get a hybrid of the two? So a Joshua Xerxes, a number nine who can bring the ball down, who can bring other players into play, right? But his main goal is goals, right? Jonathan David is kind of like that sort of false nine, but has the finishing ability to play on it on his own as well. Probably offers the best of both. But then De Ketelaere, I thought could be our Havertz. He's had a decent season this year out at Atalanta.
Yeah, Atalanta, because
I think,
we were also linked with him in, was it summer, wasn't it?
yeah, and he can play on the wing. He's a bit of a Zaniolo in that sense, but he would just have more potential, I think, and just be a better suit for us. He can play in that number 10 role. He could play on each wing. He could play up front, and I think if
Mm.
we followed that Havertz model, and we have wingers running in behind, he would be one of the best players we could bring in to just help out the squad
Yeah, it's quite
um,
an interesting one
to
because he
play
can.
alongside Watkins.
Yeah, that way he wouldn't create so much of a conflict with Duran. Like you could have them both in the squad because if Duran's playing, then Catalara can play on the right hand side or whatever. Very flexible, does give an option in terms of like he can play in a more of a midfield role as well. I don't know what. So is he on loan at Atalanta?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. I'm
So
gonna
I know when we were linked with him in summer, it seemed like he'd be available quite cheap because he'd just not really played that much basically at
Yeah,
18 Milan.
he's at Atalanta permanently, so you would have to fork out for him. But
Yeah, it'd be an expensive one
his
then.
numbers for a forward are. incredible from a creative perspective. And then if you look at attacking mid winger, he's so well rounded, and his defensive numbers, like Zaniolo, are so high up there. They're brilliant. So he would. I think Emery would love him if he came in. It's just whether you can get him out of Atalanta at the moment with them being Europa League winners.
Yeah, he's just
Um,
moved there, had a good season. That'll be a
yeah,
tricky one.
and so the cherry on the top, final point, I think, if we were to have a perfect summer, the luxury player that comes in, that sort of number 10 who just links everything together and creates that spider web for everyone to work between, is a Bainia, it's an Elise, it's that kind
Yeah,
of, it's
yeah.
that luxury player who's, when I say luxury, that probably springs to mind the wrong ideas, because usually when people say luxury players, it's that player who you don't necessarily expect to put in a shift like everyone else. But if you get them the ball in the right areas, they can make the difference. I think these guys are more than that. They're not just fancy, flashy number 10s that just create for you. I think they offer more than that.
No,
And
I mean, Bain or Elise would be luxury in the sense that
yeah,
they would massively improve the quality of our first 11, basically. Like the level of the team improves immediately. I mean, yeah, we didn't even talk about Bain because he's been but he has actually been linked. But I kind of would be surprised if we went for a Bain or Elise just because like the other areas of the squad that we've covered are absolutely a higher priority. And like going through the outs and stuff as well in midfield, in sort of midfield forward, attacking midfield, we're quite well stacked. Really, we've got a lot of quality there. We've not got someone probably of Bainya's quality in terms of like chance creation and playmaking abilities and stuff, but like we have got a lot of quality there. So
yeah. I mean,
um,
if we're bringing in Barkley as a replacement for Louise, preempting his sale, and we go and sell
yeah,
him for 78
to be
million,
fair,
bringing
yeah,
in Bainia, we've then brought in two midfielders that more than cover for what Louise offered going forward and from a deep line perspective. So I think that's where these kind of questions and these discussions start going for the good of the club and for our progression. Selling Louise doesn't look all that bad. Um,
yeah,
so, it's definitely an option. Elise
yeah,
might be a bit high of a price tag, but again, if you sell Louise for more money, it's still profit, and Elise is one of those players who's going to be special. So it's just who does he go to? Where does he achieve what he can achieve?
yeah. So
Yep, 6:30, time for Matt to
that's
leave.
it. Got to wrap it
Uh,
up.
yeah. Do you want to do an outro?
I
The
can try and do an
theatrical
outro.
theatrical animated one is you actually literally walk out the room and turn the stream off.
Yeah, if you want. Right. Okay. So that was what we call it. What was your word? Bolster.
Yeah, we're bolstering the Aston Villa squad this summer. The big. I'll probably
That
call it
was
the
the
same
big.
thing, just so someone actually watches it. But
So yeah, that was the bolster, the big Villa bolster. Covered some ins and outs. Got some tasty potential ins. I think be interesting to see if any of them come to fruition. Some of them I think will. I think like there's some realistic shouts there as well. But it'd be nice to see the optimistic Bania possibility come true. And that's it. We'll be back for another ep with a review after the Champions League final, I guess, and we'll go over the season more broadly, or over the Champions, the European games or something.
yeah, I think we could touch on. We could do little bit of a season review in general. Maybe touch
Yeah,
on a
we've got
few
our
of the.
tables that
Yeah,
were that we haven't actually been over yet. Our
yeah, we haven't reviewed our final tables, and there's always more transfer rumors for us to discuss, and we can do player of
yeah,
the day.
true.
So
There'll
there'll
be
be more episodes coming for
fun
sure.
round.
And with that, I think we bid you farewell. And Matt,
I'm
good
out.
luck with whatever your social evening
I'm
event
out.
is today. But
Off.
yeah, it's been good. And we'll see you again next week, I guess.
Sometime.
All right. Bye bye.